Hello and welcome to Hop On Board. My name is Chris Flores, and in this video we'll be learning the 2 to 4 player rules for Ofrenda, designed by André Santos, Orlando Sa, illustrated by Alex Herrerías, and published by Osprey Games. Let's get it to the table. In Ofrenda, players will be constructing their family's ofrenda in preparation of Dia de Muertos, the Mexican festival of the dead, celebrating our loved ones that have passed away. Constructing an ofrenda, or offering, is probably the most iconic tradition of the holiday. Alongside portraits of your loved ones, an ofrenda will be bright and inviting, covered in candles and marigolds, and have all of your loved ones' favorite foods, drinks, and knickknacks from their favorite hobbies or pastimes for them to enjoy during their visit to your family this one night of the year. The game Ofrenda will simulate this tradition by having players draft family members' portraits onto their personal ofrenda. Fulfilling the desires notated on a family member's portrait will result in them visiting your ofrenda on Dia de Muertos, lighting up their portrait in appreciation. Remember that having portraits light up is how you score points at the end of the game. These family members all have different tastes when it comes to the offerings they want by their portrait, and may even have some requirements based on some personal grudges against other branches of the family tree that they haven't quite been able to let go of, even in the afterlife. After 12 turns, points will be tallied, and the player with the most points wins. So let's get set up, look at some key components, and learn how to play Ofrenda. First, find the family board and place it in the center of the play area. Then, take the deck of portrait cards and based on your player count, remove all portrait cards with a higher indicated player count than your game. We are setting up for a 2-player game, so we will remove all cards with a 3+ or 4 shown here. Shuffle the necessary portrait cards for your game into a deck and place them lit side face up onto the rightmost space of the family board. Place the yellow bag of marigold tokens and the blue bag of candle tokens next to the family board. Draw 4 candles randomly from the blue bag and place them unlit side face up on each circular space above a portrait. Now give each player their own ofrenda board and deal each player 3 cards from the deck, keeping their unlit side secret. Each player then takes 3 marigolds into their personal storage, and the player that most recently lit a candle goes first. And that's the setup. Now let's take a closer look at portrait cards, marigolds, and candles before getting into gameplay. Portrait cards have a lit side and an unlit side. Both sides indicate the family member's family branch icon by one of 5 color and shape combinations: a blue circle, a green burst, a pink hexagon, an orange star, or a purple square. Both sides also indicate the family member's favorite offering, another one of 5 possibilities: fruit, calavera, decorative sugar skulls, water, salt, and papeles picados, bright sheets of tissue paper with intricate designs cut into them. The unlit side of a portrait card also displays the portrait's objective. As soon as a portrait has all its adjacent slots filled, check to see if the objective has been fulfilled. If it has, flip the portrait to its lit side. Portrait objectives are read like so. An objective with this slash means that all adjacent portraits have at least one of the 2 depicted features. Seeing the 2+ over a feature indicates that 2 or more adjacent portraits must have the feature shown. Seeing an objective with X'd features indicates that no adjacent portraits may show any of the 2 depicted features. Looking at marigolds, we must consider them both as a currency and opportunity for bonus points in in-game scoring. Knowing when to consider a marigold more appropriate as one over the other could easily make or break your game. You will use them as a currency to take portrait cards and candles from the family board, but they will score you 1 bonus point for every lit portrait on your ofrenda that they are adjacent to at the end of game. Candle tokens provide more objectives to your ofrenda with the opportunity for bonus points in the endgame. They have the opportunity to be free, but will often come at the cost of 1 marigold. Candle objectives read similarly to the objectives on portrait cards and are flipped to their lit side as soon as the objective is fulfilled, but some candle objectives are resolved at the end of the game. For a complete breakdown of portrait card and candle objectives, refer to the backside of the rulebook for a great player aid and reference sheet. Candle objectives that are resolved at the end of the game are denoted here with an hourglass. When taking a turn, a player will go through the following phases. First, they must take a portrait from the family board into their hand, and then they may take a candle from the family board. Second, they replenish the family board so that there are 4 portraits and 4 candles for the next player to consider on their turn. And third, they must either place a portrait card on an empty space of their ofrenda or discard a portrait card in exchange for marigolds. They may then place candles or marigolds in newly surrounded slots of their Ofrenda board. And that's a player turn. So let's get into the actual gameplay and see all of these phases of a turn carried out in more detail. To begin your turn, take a portrait card from the family board into your hand. Taking the leftmost portrait card has no cost, but when taking any other portrait, you must place one marigold on each portrait from left to right that you skip over. If the portrait card you take into your hand already has marigolds on it, take those marigolds into your storage. There is no marigold storage limit. In this example, the blue player would like to claim the second portrait card. They place one marigold on the first, and then claim the second portrait card and the marigold that was already on it for a net cost of 0 marigolds. The blue player may then take a candle if they would like, as long as they have fewer than 3 candles in their storage. Taking the candle directly above the portrait they just took has 0 cost, but taking any other candle requires placing one marigold from their storage on the portrait below that candle. This candle seems to have some good synergy with the portrait they just took, so they will take it into their storage, placing one marigold on the portrait below it. The board must then be replenished. Slide all portraits on the family board to the left as able, and draw a new card to replace unlit side face up on the rightmost space. If a candle was taken, slide all the remaining candles to the left until one space is empty, and then draw a new candle from the bag. Let's look at the blue player's turn a few turns later in the game, after the board has been replenished. They must now either place a portrait from their hand onto their Ofrenda or discard a portrait. If they choose to place the portrait on their Ofrenda, they must place the portrait unlit side up in any empty slot of their Ofrenda. Placing a portrait in a marigold slot earns you 1 marigold from the supply. Placing a portrait in a slashed marigold slot means you must pay 1 marigold back to the supply. If you have no marigolds in your storage, you may not place portraits here. Note that portraits placed in one of these slots with a golden outline will be worth double points in the endgame. Very important to light these up. If you choose to discard a portrait card, simply place it next to your Ofrenda and gain 3 marigolds from the supply to your storage in exchange. You may then place candles and marigolds. If all 3 portrait slots adjacent to a candle or marigold slot were filled on this turn, you may choose to place a candle or marigold into the surrounded slot. A newly placed portrait may result in multiple candle or marigold slots being surrounded. You may place in all newly surrounded slots. You may not place candles or marigolds in slots that were surrounded in previous turns. In this example, the blue player chooses to place this portrait card in this slot, now surrounding this candle slot. They have the option to fill it, and they choose to do so with a candle whose objective they are confident they can complete by the end of the game. Once all players have taken 12 turns, it's time for final scoring. First, double check all of your unlit portraits to see if you can flip any to their lit side, along with candles. The blue player may not flip any of their portraits to their lit side, but looking at their candles, there is one they can flip. This candle's objective states that if they have 3 or more marigolds in their storage at the end of the game, they may flip it. They have 4 marigolds in their storage at the end game, so this may be flipped to its lit side. This last candle's objective requires 4 portraits on the Ofrenda whose favored offering is water. They only have 2, so this candle will remain unlit. After checking unlit portraits and candles, take a score sheet and record the scores as follows. Each unlit portrait and candle on your board scores 0 points. Each lit portrait scores 2 points per adjacent lit portrait and 1 point per adjacent unlit portrait. Then, double the portrait's score if it is in a golden slot. Each marigold scores 1 point per adjacent lit portrait, and each lit candle scores 2 points per adjacent lit portrait. The player with the most points wins. If there is a tie, the player with the most lit portraits on their Ofrenda wins. If there is still a tie, the player with the most marigolds in their storage wins. If there is still a tie, the tied players share the victory. And that is how you play Ofrenda. For a more challenging Ofrenda experience, check out the Common Goals variant of the game explained in the back of the rulebook. In this variant, players will race to complete 3 different goals with more points going to the players that complete them first, all while trying to efficiently play the base game we just covered. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let me know what you liked and didn't like in the comments below. continue getting great games like Ofrenda to your table, and encourage others to hop on board. Thank you.